I did a video some while back on heartbreaking games as a Canuck fan. And I decided today that I would do my 10 favorite games as a Canuck fan or moments of pride as a Canucks fan. And I use that as an excuse to get the Bo Horvat picture on the wall that I got from a Canucks auction and clean up the wall a little bit. The Bobby Orr's moved over. I'll have a Henrik Sedin 8x10 underneath the Bobby Orr. I think it's okay. And don't worry if you're worried about what about all the other banners. The plan is to have them over here, in this area here, and to clean some of that up that's not even really visible on the camera anyways. So that's the plan. And once the season's done on the weekend, one way or the other, right? Then, I'll have the time to do that. Evenings will be kind of freed up a little bit. Although I'll be covering football on the other channel quite extensively this year in a way I never have because there won't be hockey. So, yeah, I'll have time. All right, so my 10 favorite games. Now, none of these involve losses. I had a list of 20, so I'm going to give honorable mentions to the other 10. April 10th, 1982, Game 3 of Round 1 against the Calgary Flames. They won that game 3-1. That was a clincher. That was the first time the Canucks had ever won a series, and I watched it. April 27th, 1982, Conference Final Game 1, Chicago. They beat the Hawks 2-1 in double overtime. And I remember being an excited kid. They don't make the top 10 because my excitement grew as I got to know more about the sport. April 24th and 26th of 1992, games 5 and 6 against the Winnipeg Jets. They won those games 8-2 and 8-3. They had been down 3-1 in that series and then steamrolled the Winnipeg Jets from there. April 17th, 2004, in Game 6 of Round 1 against the Calgary Flames. In triple overtime, they won 5-4. They had been down 3-2. They forced a Game 7, and then they lost the Game 7. But Game 6 was fun. April 11th, 2007, in Round 1 against Dallas. Game 1, they won it in 4 overtimes, 5-4. So a lot of goals during the 60 minutes, and then the next 60 minutes there were none, and then in the 4th overtime, Vancouver wins it. May 3rd, 2007, the Canucks lose Game 5 of Round 2 against the Anaheim Ducks. They lost it in double overtime 2-1. My moment of pride with that is simple. This was a team that I felt was outgunned by Anaheim completely and totally. Anaheim looked like they were going to be Stanley Cup champions, which they were, shortly thereafter. And so there was no shame in losing to them. And I took pride in the fact that even though they were down 3-1 and it goes to overtime and double overtime, and of course that was the game where Luongo leaves and he comes back. And yeah, it was absolute chaos, but I was proud of them after that game. May 9th, 2011, Game 6 of Round 2 against Nashville. That's the 2-1 clincher over the Nashville Predators, so that gets an honorable mention. June 4th, 2011, Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals against Boston. They win 3-2 in overtime. They took a 2-0 series lead. That was one of 2 times in that series that I said, wow, Vancouver's going to win a Stanley Cup. This is really, really bizarre. June 14th, 1994, Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final against the New York Rangers. They lose that one. Game 7. They lost to the Rangers 3-2, and that was a heartbreaker. But I had tremendous pride in them for the run that they'd been on in '94. And then April 15th, 1989, Game 7 of Round 1. Calgary beats them in overtime 4-3, and of course that's the Joel Otto kick. But after that game, it went off his skate. It wasn't a kick. It went off his skate. But after that game, I still had tremendous pride that the Canucks, a team that only had 73 points that year, had taken a team that had 117 that season and pushed them to overtime in Game 7. So those are the honorable mentions. So number 10 on this list, you don't have to go very far for this one. Game 6, Round 2, scores 4-0. And because Demko. So down 3-2 against the Vegas Golden Knights, Vancouver, this year. So this is, I'll write the date on here. Vancouver wins the game 4-0, and of course Thatcher Demko with 48 saves in that game. Absolutely insane. 48 saves. I still, that game. So again, this is, it's a source of pride. They lost Game 7. They got overwhelmed in Game 7. But hey, full props to them for Game 6. And Demko for Game 6. Thanks, Demko. Number 9 on the list. Again, this is from this year as well. Versus St. Louis. August 19th of 2020. Game 5. Round 1. Score was, of course, 4-3. And because, I'll just put reasons. The St. Louis Blues, defending Stanley Cup champions, August 19th of 2020. Vancouver beats them 4-3 in Game 5, which might have been the best game I've seen Vancouver play all season. And it was amazing because this was a series that had tremendous ebbs and flows both ways, and it looked like St. Louis might run them out of the building, and they didn't. So these are the only 2 from the 2020 run that are on the board. I'll go ahead and change colors because what's life without some whimsy? So yeah, Game 5, Round 1, 4-3 victory there, and I have reasons. And those are the only 2 from 2020 because making the top 10 is difficult. Very, very, very difficult. Number 8. Versus Chicago. April 26, 2011. Game 7, Round 1. You guys know which one this is. They win it in overtime. And the reason, they didn't choke. Chicago was down 3-0, and they forced Game 7 in overtime. And so the feeling I had after watching Vancouver win this was that thank God they didn't choke. That was all I could think of was if they had choked that one away, it is a historic 3-0 loss. Remember, that would have been a year after Boston had blown a 3-0 series lead on Philly. So that would have been a back-to-back I really, really, really don't want to see. So, yeah, that one comes in at 8 for me. I know it would have been a lot higher, especially for the younger crowd on this channel and all of that. Number 7. This is also April 26th. Wait. Opponent first. Calgary. Game 5, Round 1. A lot of these are going to be Round 1 because they don't get out of the first round often enough. And the really emotional wins seem to be in Round 1. So they won this one 2-1 in overtime. This is where the cardiac kids come from. And they've been down 3-1. So Game 5, Calgary, home team, and they're definitely picked as the favorites by most watching. And Vancouver won it in overtime 2-1. And it felt like the series had kind of turned with that moment. That Vancouver's confidence was there. And Game 6 and Game 7, it was just overtime was good to Vancouver in Round 1. And overall that year. But that was a very emotional victory. Not 2011, I'm thinking. 1994. I got it right here. All right, 1994. So April 26, 1994. For 2011 games, I've only got one other one in here, so that's not really a mistake I should be making often here. Number 6. And this is Calgary too. Flames fans are like, why is it always us? Because there's a rivalry between Vancouver and Calgary. April 5th, 1989. Game 1, Round 1. I'll just put because, yay! So April 5th, 1989. Game 1 of Round 1. And this is what started that 1989 deal where they end up, of course, losing. And that was an honorable mention, was the Game 7. Game 1, though, they won that one in overtime 4-3 in Calgary. And, yeah, that was unexpected by me. I was floored by that. Absolutely huge victory for the organization, for those young guys on the roster. And it made you feel like, hey, maybe Vancouver's finally going to be good. And I took plenty of ridicule at my school when I said I think Vancouver's going to get good soon. No, they're not. They're the Canucks. No, think they're going to get better. And people told me they weren't. They were Vancouver. They weren't allowed to get better. So remember, this is the Canucks marketplace, and still a lot of kids at the time were like, they're the Canucks. They're not allowed to get better. Number 5. Yeah. All right, St. Louis, you're on the board again, too. Oh, 2003. I had no idea what awaited us. Game 7. April 22nd, 2003. They'd been down 3-1. They came back and they beat St. Louis in Game 7, 4-1. Once the momentum shifted in Vancouver's favor, it was huge. And a lot of it was Bertuzzi. So we all know about what Bertuzzi's remembered for now. But the 03 playoffs, Bertuzzi really got in the head of the Blues, the heads, I should say, collectively of the Blues defensemen, where every time they touched the puck, they knew Bertuzzi was coming. And this was a player that hit hard and fast. He hit clean. Bertuzzi's game was 99.9% clean. The biggest issue, of course, is that one time that he crossed that line. It was horrendous. It was awful, and it overshadowed everything that came before. This is what came before. And that Canucks team, of course, would then have a 3-1 series lead of their own in the next round that they would lose. So that feeling I had after that Game 7 against St. Louis, it didn't last. But it felt pretty good when it happened. Let's see. So number 4. Team first, Shannon. Team first. Team first. If I put Rangers, you guys know it's New York, right? I'm not talking about Kitchener. May 31st, or Texas. May 31st, 1994, Game 1 of the finals. There aren't very many games from the finals on this list. It's interesting. I guess I could throw an honorable mention to games 5 and 6 from that series too, because I thought that was done. But game 1 from the Stanley Cup Finals that year. 3-2 win in overtime. That's where McLean really became a hero to Canuck fans on a level that no goalie had that wasn't named Brodeur before then. And I would even argue that since then, I don't even know if Luongo, legend-wise, reached the level of McLean. Luongo was the better goaltender for Vancouver than McLean. And I don't even think Kirk McLean would get upset being, compared with Luongo and somebody saying, well, I think Luongo was a better overall goaltender. But McLean was just such a huge hero to Canuck fans. Still is. He still draws quite the crowd when he's at Rogers, and rightfully so. Not that Luongo wouldn't. Luongo absolutely would. We got 3 left here. All right, number 3. Hey, Flames fans, how's it going? April 30th, 1994, Game 7, Round 1. Score in that one was... it went to double overtime. Game 7, Round 1, 4-3, double overtime win for Vancouver over Calgary because of the Bure goal. The Bure goal is absolutely beautiful. It was such a great game. And the pass by Jeff Brown, underrated as well. So that was a great moment for any Canucks fan anywhere because it felt like this team was finally maybe going to do something. And it was weird because 93 and 92 there were great disappointments in 93 and 92. And 94 wiped a lot of that out. This is where the Canucks in 92 and 93 had proven they could beat the Jets in the playoffs. But when they faced Edmonton and then when they faced LA, they fell both times. And so while those teams were really good in the regular season, they couldn't get it done in the postseason. The 94 team, interestingly enough, wasn't very good during the regular season, but during the postseason, they were absolutely on fire. So, all right. That's number 3. Number 2. Hello, San Jose. You're on the board. May 24th, 2011. Game 5, conference final. Score was 3-2, double overtime. And it was the game that got Vancouver to the Stanley Cup Finals. So we've all seen the Bieksa goal. And it was a great goal. Like, that was an absolutely fantastic game. That game was awesome. That was just... And that series, they finished it in 5. There wasn't a lot of tension about whether or not they'd blow it. And remember, this was a team that had almost blown it in the first round. So I thought it was great that there wasn't a whole lot of tension about that with Nashville or with San Jose. And then, of course, Boston happened. But, that San Jose game, that was one of those great moments that I was very, very happy as a Canuck fan that they got as far as they did. Which means that number 1 on the list. Hello, Toronto. So, Toronto. And it's May 24th, 1994. This is game... Just making sure I've got it right here. Yeah, game 5 of the conference final as well. That's this thing. I'm kind of repeating myself. Like, wait a minute. This is 4-3. And again, overtime. The reason they're called the Cardiac Canucks, because it feels like all their big winners. So this is one that gets them into the Stanley Cup Finals. And this is that big game. So the Toronto game, Game 5 conference finals, I had never been and have never been again as a Canuck fan more nervous than I was that night. That is a moment where, it was one of those alone moments. So I was in my early 20s. I'm living alone in my apartment. I hadn't even had a girlfriend at that stage of my life, because who's had a girlfriend by the time they're 21? Everybody had. But anyways, the reality is that I really was nervous that the Canucks weren't going to do this. Because remember, since 82 when I'd become a Canuck fan, it had just been all total disappointment. And when they won that game, that conference final, the interesting thing is the whole apartment building I was in, the noise. And then there were cars, there were horns, it was insane. There was this tremendous sense of relief I had, this tremendous sense of joy that I had that the Rangers would stomp out within a couple of weeks. But for that night, it was the happiest that I'd been as a Vancouver Canucks fan. So, 1994, 2011, 94, 94, 2003, 89, 94, 2011, and then there's the 2 from this year that to me break into the top 10. So, let's see. Calgary's on the board 3 times. St. Louis is on the board twice. Chicago's only there once because Vancouver traditionally doesn't do very well against Chicago. That being said, of course, 82, I'd give probably the top honorable mention. The 11th spot would probably go to the 82 Stanley Cup. And again, if I'd been older when I saw that game, it would be much, much higher. But at the time, as a 9-year-old, I didn't know how big a deal that was. I just thought it was great the Canucks won the game. And naively believed they had a chance against the Islanders, and then they didn't. But game 1 was close. But anyways, so there you go. My 10 favorite games as a Canuck fan, 10 biggest wins I felt as a Canuck fan, and there's some pretty good moments. So I felt that I did a video where I talked about all the heartache. I didn't want to leave it on that. I thought, no, you need to talk about the good moments too, because there have been some great moments. And what I look forward to is the moments that are going to push these off the board in the near future. And that's where I get really upset. The Canucks have dared to get my hopes up again that maybe someday there'll actually be a championship in their future. And for that, well, anyways, it's been 50 years and all that. Not for me. I'm not 50. But anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know your favorite game as a Canuck fan in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I'll talk to you again soon.